of the best companies that I have seen performing in talent acquisition, some of the founders have previously identified the people that they want to bring on board once they have closed the round, the investment round, and they have the enough resources to grow the team. So definitely, I mean, my first advice is planning a startup is not a 1 week normally situation. It's more like a completely life changing situation in terms of lifestyle, in terms of personal life, in terms of professional life. And what I have seen is that a lot of people start building their startup even previously or even before they quit their jobs. They start using their free time to plan what they were willing to they're willing to do, what industries will they like, or they're feeling there is an opportunity. And what I have seen is that most of the founders that have successfully like cracked the code in terms of the industries is people that have a deep knowledge on that industry, that have also a deep knowledge on the problems that the industry face and how to solve it through technology. But because of that, they know a lot of people in the industry, and they know people from a lot of time before, that makes them like start choosing what people they will be willing to bring on board once they have like start their own company. So my first strategy will be definitely you have to think about talent even before when you're planning your startup, and the days before, not just when you are in already hiring. And that applies like a lot for the C-level that you want to bring on board, like for the CFO or for the people that you want to have really close to you, because that will scatter, like we will go down and they will bring people. I mean, if that people is something that you feel comfortable, maybe they will be bring people down the line that will also make you feel comfortable, and they're similar in terms of performance and knowledge and willing work ethics and all these. So my first like comment here is in early stage, I have seen people like working their team before, not, and I'm not talking about co-founders. We will speak later about that, but I'm talking about like start building their team or their dream team even before they start fundraising. And I'm not saying hiring that team, just planning, okay, I would love to have this person in this position. I would love to have this person in this position. This person is perfect for this. And when you keep rolling and knowing more people, you will definitely have like an idea of what the type of persons do you want. Even if one person of these do not accept the offer or is not willing to change works, you know what type of profile you're looking for. So it's easier to identify if I say, okay, I want someone like this person. Even if that person doesn't come on board of your company, definitely you have the opportunity to know what profile you're looking for and the type of person and the personalities you're looking for. So that's what I have seen like in early stage. Afterwards, well, there is a lot of like things that we're definitely talking in another question, but I will say that's the better strategy. The other thing that I recommend is you have to be always like in hiring mode. Like if you feel there is a person like after you start your company and you're already hiring, there's startups starts with a plan, but they always have to change plans halfway, and there are a lot of curves in the road. So you have to be like open to changes. But if you find someone that you feel should belong to your team, is an outperformer, you should hire that person, even if you don't have the position. But if you have the resources to bring him on board or they're on board, you should definitely do it, because it's more of the who you're bringing on board in the early stages, that for what are you bringing on board. And definitely great talent is a super difficult challenge, as we talked in our first conversation. So there is a lot of value of bringing people that even if you don't know the position, you know they will be a great asset to your company. So that will be my second strategy. And the other is like you need to bring people with you feel comfortable like sharing your you a lot of time together and discussing a lot of because like building a startup in the early days and in all stages is super hard, and you will have to have a lot of discussion and you will have to pass a lot of time together. So definitely it's easier to plan if you feel comfortable, like, and you feel motivated to be with that person. That's something that definitely works. And also the founders that I have seen, like in my experience, looking for like having the best talent is people that are always willing to hire people that knows more than them. So I'm the founder, but I want to hire someone that knows more than me, people that is best performer than me. I mean, that is a better version of me, more or is more senior, and I'm not scared of bringing that type of people. Because if you want to be at the top always, I mean, every one of us has like a limit, and you will never overachieve if you don't have someone that inspires you also in your organization. And since things change so fast in the startup world, like you need to start learning while you're building, and the best way to learn while you're building is bringing people with more experience, with more knowledge, that can teach you and can guide you and can mentor you while they're being your wingmans and be building with you. So I would say those are like the three things that I have seen that I can recall, like for the best talent acquisition. I mean, this is similar to the first strategy that we mentioned in the talent acquisition, and is definitely founders is not something that you find like in a web page or in a recruitment agency or in a headhunter. It's something that like the best founders know each other for a lot of time, and they have been together or working or living or whatever for a long time. So they know each other not only professionally but also personally, and they know what, and they have worked together. Like that's really important, and that makes a lot of difference in terms of relationship between founders, is when they have worked together and they have like share more than a year together or more than 2 years together. I mean, the longer the better, because you really know that you're willing to work with that person. You really know what that person looks like in the work atmosphere, how he reacts to different situations, how he reacts to feedback, how he reacts to difficult situations or stressful situation. So that's also something that I have seen. It's really important, and it's like I would not say that the other way around will be a red flag, but it's something that definitely will make a super nice like an add-on. Definitely in the startup world, if the co-founders know each other for a long time. The other thing that it's really important is that you trust each other a lot, and I mean like the test should be, okay, well, I'll be willing to tell this person like one of my top secret situations or wherever, and he will be willing to listen to me, and he will keep that for me, or he will give me the best advice possible. Definitely, that's something that should work, that people have to work, is we have to trust each other. You have to be sure that the founder, that your co-founder, doesn't matter what situation is he's willing to cover your back, because I mean, when there's building a startup, as I mentioned, is really hard. So if you need someone to cover you, it's definitely your co-founder, and you have to be willing to cover your co-founder as well. So that's something that I don't know. I don't think it's built like in a week or in a month. It takes longer to trust each other, to trust that people is going to make similar decisions that you will do, even if you're not present there. So trust is super important. And the other thing is, there are sometimes that when you start building, you start noticing situations where the relationship is going nowhere, or that definitely you can work with that person, even if you are close or you have worked together before. So I would say difficult situations, the early the better. So if you are like in a seed stage or pre-seed stage, and you feel definitely you're not comfortable like with your co-founder, things are not going to get any better. I think things are not going to be any easier. So you have to take the correct thing to do is to take measures as soon as you start finding that this thing is happening. The latest, it will be more, it will make more it will create more issues for the company. It will be more evident for your team around you that you are not like feeling comfortable with your co-founder. It will impact the performance of your company for sure. So definitely, if things go south, definitely you should take measures as soon as you start finding this. And I have seen startups survive in early stage when a co-founder is not working, like is not working at the same level that the other co-founders are. But the later the stage, the harder the impact for the company. I would say that, and I will speak also in the cases that I have been close to in these years investing in LATAM, is attracting the top talent means that you have to be sure that that person is completely in love with the purpose of your company. So that's the best thing that I have seen. I have seen a lot of people moving because it's trendy or because they are offering a good raise or they're offering a good package in terms of equity or whatever. But that normally doesn't work. Like you have to be sure and you have to be creative on how to evaluate if that the person that you are hiring is really in love and is willing to fight every day for the purpose of the company, the purpose of your company. Uh, when that happens, people tend to be like self-motivated and self-empowered on what they have to do every day to achieve that purpose. So I think this is really important and can be kind of romantic, but it's definitely one of the things that you have to take into account is that in early stage things are so hard that if you don't have a clear purpose, it's easy to quit of that mission. So with and that means that if you attract this type of talent, it will be easy to retain them because they have a mission every day that they are willing to accomplish for personal reasons. So that's really important. The other thing is not always, I mean, seniority doesn't always mean better performance in startups. And I have seen a lot of people moving, for example, from big corporations to startups that they have achieved a tremendous amount of results, of excellent results in the corporate world. But once they move to the startup world, things are really different. And I have seen failing like for both sides because when you make a senior hire from a corporation, bring it to the team, everyone has huge expectations on things how can work, and I have seen that is difficult. So also be aware of if that the level or the size of your company is the the size that that person is used to work with, because once you are like if you are a super small company and you bring someone from a huge corporation, I mean a huge corporation, you have a lot of hands around you, you have a lot of people working for you, you have a lot of departments. In a startup you don't have anything, and in the early stages it's super hard and you need to do like people need to do a lot of things. Even if you hire for marketing, they can end up in a discussion of tech or product or whatever. So it's important to align like the expectations of the people you're hiring with the real size and the stage of the company, because bringing people that it's like really mature may create a lot of expectations, but sometimes if the company is not big enough for them or doesn't have the organization to make these people like be able to perform as they perform in the corporation, that can be a crash, and that can cost a lot of money. So be aware of that. The other thing is to retain talent. Definitely, you have to be willing to share your equity, like the best tool that you have on hand. And if people is in love with your purpose, they will feel really well rewarded with equity. So don't be shy with equity. I know dilution is a thing, but it's better to have 60% of a huge company than 80% of a small company. So definitely be open to give equity, make equity valuable for people, and explain why equity is so important and how they can grow through equity, their personal equity. So that's another really important part. And I think equity is super like should be a super valuable tool that you have on your hand to retain people, and it's something that you have to be super open and willing to share. For me, one yellow flag when you're hiring is when people is not interested in equity and prefer like a huge salary. So that means that the person is more motivated for the short term impact that the salary is going to have on their accounts than for the long run in terms of the equity that they are convinced they can build and will represent a lot of money. So yeah, if someone is not willing to come just for is not willing to come with equity and is just willing to come for a relevant compensation, that's a yellow flag for me, and that will be a person that will be difficult to retain in the future. Definitely, I think so. Yeah, that will be my advice in terms of hiring and retaining. And as I mentioned in the previous point, not only be open to hire always, like we always say that a company should be always ready to fundraise. You should always be ready to hire, because when you find like extraordinary people in an event or whatever, and you feel that that person should belong to your company, you should do everything in your hands to bring it to your company, because its talent will never be enough, even if you don't have an open position for that person. We're, I mean, we have learned this, I think, the hard way in the LATAM ecosystem, but we're really different from the US, definitely, and that's an obvious conclusion. But in terms of disruption and create a startup here, you will notice that there is a bunch of different things, and this can be enough to make a whole panel about it. But one of the things that you will have to acknowledge, there is a lack of capital compared to the US. So you have to take into account that raising money for LATAM is difficult. I'm not saying that it's easy in the US, but the amount of capital to be deployed in the LATAM or for the region is much more less. So you have capital restraints, and you will have to be careful with that, because if you want to copycat a model that could make sense, the amount of cash that you can burn will never be the same, because you will never be able to raise the amount of money that or the way the company is raising the US. So capital constraints is something that you have to take into account in the model. The other thing that you should consider is the real situation of the markets. How many companies in LATAM are worth 500 million or 1 billion? There are a lot. Like that's every day. That's something that happens every day in the US, that a company gets a valuation of 1 billion or 2 billions or 3 billions. That's something that doesn't happen often here in Latam. So you should consider that in your rounds, so that you can have a win-win situation for your personal wealth, but also for your investors. And this means not only for funds, but for your angel investors, for the equity of your team. If things, I mean, if you are overvaluating your company, you will hurt the equity that you're bringing to your team, and that can have a boomerang effect. So that's one thing. The other thing that I think is pretty hard here is the way we interact in business, and you need a lot of be willing to work in your network all the time and to build relationships every time, because in the US it's different the way they sell and the way they approach sales. To sell here and to sell something complicated like technology, you need to have a lot of insider relationships, in terms of be connected with your clients, with your investors, with people that might present you or introduce you or put you in the right position to make a huge sale. So definitely, I think relationship management, if that's something that you can call, and network management is something that founders should know, that it's really different than in the US, and you need in Latam a lot of network to be successful and to be. And it's not the funniest part when you have to do it like on purpose and for work, but it's definitely a differentiator of how to build a huge company in LATAM. And is the biggest your network, the biggest the chances of success of your company. That's it. Is that easier? So I think that's something that really is super different. Uh, and the other thing is that I mean, we're creating an asset type. It's not like we have an amateur ecosystem. So the interaction between investors and founders can be really different. And me being like the part of the fund that oversees Spanish speaking Latam, definitely we are. I mean, we disagree a lot on when we're negotiating terms, but once we are like in agreement with that, we're on the same team, and you should like try to evaluate how much of that network relationships, how much of the sales part or hiring or talent acquisition the funds are willing to bring you. And if you are in a regulated industry, for example, you will definitely need people that or has been in that industry or knows the people that has been in that industry and that can uh, advise you in a better way. So it's important also to not only to fundraise from outside funds that they are the biggest ones, they are the more high with more history definitely, but also if they have like value, your angel investors, for example, they can be a huge differential for your company. Your early stage funds that can help you with network in the local markets where you're playing is something that can make a real difference and that can be really helpful. And I'm not defending my position here, but definitely something that I have seen like in the companies that they use a lot their investors in the region. Sometimes in the US it's more like, okay, I'm going to build and I'm going to be like disconnected and found and that's okay. But here, like because of the relationship building is so important, definitely use your investors and create a cap table that can have the mix that you will need to be able to have local network, but maybe international presence and big names also. What else? The approach to digital disruption. I think that's a really important part because we're not. I mean, what the problems that we have in the region are really different than the problems that a U.S. citizen has, or the European citizen has, or an Australian citizen has. So, approaching to tech here should be like really in terms of solving real problems for the people. And a lot of people in the industry mentioned you should be working on building painkillers nor vitamins. What does that mean? If you are going out of your house and you have a migraine, you will definitely will go back for your painkiller. But if you forget one morning your vitamins, you are not going back. So that's a nice to have. But definitely that you forget it for one day, nothing's going to happen to you. So that's the type of companies, and there's a lot of pains here in the region. So focus on not building the tech for the solution for the citizens in that work for the citizens in Finland, work for the solutions for the citizens and for in Latam. Because technology, I mean, you can access information technology like really easy, but building for the real problems is something that you should work on study what are the real pains in the region and building for to solve those pains. When you solve real pains in the region, definitely you are maybe not creating a huge disruption, but you are creating a huge company. And that's something that makes a lot of sense, like for investors and for everyone in the ecosystem. So you don't have to look too far to see the problems that you have in the region. And also, it's not a bad idea not to be inspired by what happens in the more developed economies. You should look also for economies that what type of solutions they have built for similar problems in economies that are more similar to the ones where you're building. And that's something that you should not only be inspired maybe by what's happening in tech in the US, because a lot of that will never be built in LATAM. We will be more users than builders in some type of tech. But what's happening in Southeast Asia could be a great example of type of companies and problems that we have and the type of solutions that we should be building. We were talking about the ambidextrous like approach that is in this book that it's called Lead to Disrupt, and what I think here is like it's really important for the C level, but for the founding team to have an ambidextrous approach in terms of strategy. And what does that mean? It means that you should always have in one hand what's your everyday operations, what's bringing you the revenue, what's bringing you the growth, what's bringing you the the results that you're willing to achieve for the next week, for the next 2 weeks, for the next month. But on the other hand, you should always be able to see where you want to be and where you want your company to be in the next 12 months, in the next 24 years, in the next 30 or 20 or 10 years. So what does this, how can you interpret this? You have to be ambidextrous. You have to be able to work on the present of your company and motivate your teams to achieve the results in the short term, but also be willing to have a clear vision and work every day on how you will see your company in the future. And that's the way disruption keeps going. Because sometimes when you disrupt an industry, you are in a bigger risk to be disrupted as well. And there's a lot of examples in history about disruptors that, I mean, they were like game changers and then got disrupted really fast. I don't know if we can remember like Altavista or Yahoo. I mean, nobody's using them right now. It's kind of examples of don't be able to they didn't oversee what's they worked like to disrupt an industry, but they forgot that they needed to keep building and see what's going on for the next couple of years, 10 years. So that's ambidextrous approach that I have seen, that once you confront some problems or you talk to founders or you're like trying to figure out what's going on in a company, is that sometimes you're really focusing on the everyday issues and not taking the time to think about your company in the next 5 to 10 years. And that should be a message that you should put down in all your areas. All of your areas should be thinking on, okay, on the leaders, what do we need for the results in the short term, but how do we see this company in the next 3, 5, or 10 years? And that's something that it's not easy. The short term work is something that gets you absorbed, definitely, but it's something that you have to build the time and block the agenda to think on how do you see your company in the future, and build and create the skills and bring the people, because that will give you a lot of clarity on what do you need for the short term, but also what do you need for the future in your company, and what type of people do you need, what type of product do you need, what type of tech do you need, what type of talent do you need, what are your markets. So that's something that I think it's pretty important, and is this ambidextrous approach to strategy. I mean, I don't know how to do it. I mean, I don't have like the perfect recipe. For me, it works a lot like reading things that will show, the short, not only like real the financial statements of the last month, but read something that makes you get abstracted from the present, and put you in another situation, or will give you insights, or reading about future technologies, or reading about the future in the markets, or what companies are building. That can be inspiring for me. I mean, I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about this is the way to do it. But for me, the easier way is to find the time to read about the future, and that puts me in a situation. Okay, how do I see this company in the next 5 years? If they are doing this, or if this is the type of technology that they are seeing, or if we see that the financial markets are like rewarding this type of technologies or this type of companies. So what does that mean for my company? And that's the type of like circumstances that put me in the mood of thinking about the future, for when I want to try to recreate how do I see our companies in the future.